This is the body relearning how to have its cycle because it hasn't had its cycle. This is simply a transition. There is nothing wrong with you. It just means your body is trying to restore the rhythm of its cycle. Welcome to the Mindset Mirror Connection podcast, the podcast where we debunk the eat less, move more, shrink more mentality and focus on what really matters, which includes your relationship with your body, food, self-worth, and the behaviors that align with all of those. I'm your host, Christina Hathaway, licensed therapist with specialized training in food and body obsession, certified personal trainer and nutrition coach. At the Mindset Mirror Connection podcast, we believe what you say in your mind, you see in the mirror. So let's have a conversation about that. Before we get into today's amazing episode, I want to make sure you've hit that follow button wherever you're listening to the Mindset Mirror Connection podcast. Also, if you like to listen to this pod on the go, make sure you have those downloads turned on. As always, I love a 5-star rating and review, and I want to thank you for your continued support. Now, let's get into the episode. What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Mindset Mirror Connection podcast. I'm so excited you're here. I'm so excited you took out this time for yourself to learn something about your physical and mental health. And today we're going to talk about both. We're going to talk about all things about your period, understanding your cycle. This came to mind because I had a client who recently had a baby and had her first cycle and said, "Hey, coach, can you send me over some of your podcasts around the period? I really want to understand what's going on in my body. I really want to, understand the different phases." And I said, "Yeah, sure." And then I went in and I was like, wait, I don't have one of those. So this is all things periods, but more importantly, all things periods. So we're going to talk about the cycle and how it affects you in postpartum and perimenopause. Because a lot of you listening are in one of those phases, maybe not everyone listening, but it's going to be very beneficial to you. Now, let's talk about how we learned about our periods. Because if you're anything like me, you were sat down in PE class in front of one of those box TVs with a VCR and little Miss Annie herself, "The sun'll come out tomorrow." She educated you on your period. And were you paying attention? No, you weren't. You were paying attention because it was super embarrassing. So if you didn't have an older sister or a healthy relationship with your mother where you can talk openly about these things, you turned to your friend who was more mature than you to give you information about your period. That was my experience. Thank you, Blanca, for having a period first. I also had a mother who never used tampons in her life. So as a dancer, guess what? We're not walking. Dance class was tights and a leotard, so you're not walking around with a pad on. You've got to learn how to use the tampon. Now, not everyone uses tampons, but my good old friend Regina Trio, she was the one who helped me understand those. So that's where I got my info. I'd love to hear in the comments where you got your info on your period, because it wasn't really talked about. And let's face it, even in postpartum, now I am not a parent, but I talk to many women every single day. They're left not knowing what to expect. They're left not knowing how their bodies have changed, when you go through childbirth, like your first period is really kind of this reset. Like you're starting from scratch almost. You almost feel like your, 11, 12-year-old self. Then in perimenopause, the period also can have some changes to it. Or you might be the person who has a flawless cycle but still has symptoms of perimenopause, which we have a lot of podcasts on that, but your doctor will say, well, your period's still here. You're not in perimenopause. That's not true. Do not fucking listen to them. So I'm going to touch on both of those things. Now, obviously, I want to bring in an expert to talk about this more. So I will make sure to do that for you guys. But I just wanted to let's talk about the basics here. Okay. So your period, if it's feeling off, if you're like, why does my body feel so weird? Or it's erratic and you're just like, is this normal? That is totally okay. We are going to talk about if you're weaning off breastfeeding. We're going to talk about if you're in your late 30s or 40s. We're going to also focus on how to notice the changes in your body, especially around your workouts, because it's going to change your energy levels. It's going to change your ability to manage stress. It's going to change your cravings and your hunger and fullness. Now, what I'm going to tell you is general information. This is not true for every woman, because I know for me, when I actually had a period, I worked out on my period all the time, because like I said, I started my period while I was dancing 4 to 5 hours a day. Now, speaking of that, your period is one of the most important health factors. If you have a steady cycle, we're doing okay. I see a lot of clients come in who are underfed, malnourished, they're ex-athletes, dancers, and they don't have a period. And that to me is a big, big, big red flag. So when you're having a period, I want you to realize, like, while it sucks, it's an indicator that your body is working in the way that it's supposed to. So let's talk about what that means. So we're going to go through what is the menstrual cycle, because people just think menstrual cycle is bleeding. It's PMS, right? But really it's a 20-day-ish cycle that's this hormonal symphony happening in your body. So you have day 1 to 5 is menstrual cycle, which is the bleeding part of it. Between there and day 14 or 13, you have your follicular phase, which I'm going to go through. Then we go day 14, 3 days, you have ovulation. And then from days 15 to 28-ish, you're in your luteal phase. So what's happening in each of those phases? So menstrual phase, the bleed. We're going to call it the reset though, because in your menstrual phase, your uterine lining or your endometrium is shedding out of your body. Okay. So you have not gotten pregnant and your body's like, well, I don't need this thick endometrial lining for implantation, so I'm going to shed it out of my body. Hormone wise, your progesterone and estrogen are at their lowest point during your menstrual cycle. This is important because if you guys remember when we interviewed Dr. Lee Lewis, she explained, pay attention to your symptoms during your period, because when you go into perimenopause and menopause, whatever symptoms you experience during this phase, because remember, estrogen and progesterone are low, you're most likely going to experience heightened in the perimenopause or menopause transition. So just a little keynote there. During this phase, your body is cleaning, right? It's clearing out what it doesn't need anymore. We want to think about the body's focus as kind of a renewal and a release, even though it doesn't feel that way, right? It's shedding what is no longer needed. What it feels like is low energy, increased need for rest, feeling iron malnourished. That's very interesting. Cravings for carbs and comfort foods. These are totally normal things, okay? But think about it. Your body is literally shedding tissue. That's exhausting. Okay, I was sick and like my body would not stop sneezing. It was literal torture because my body was trying to get the allergen or virus out of my nose. It was exhausting. It was exhausting. But our female bodies do that every month. It sheds, right? So your body is doing a lot of work internally. And again, it's really a time for rest, right? So that is the bleed. Then from day 1 to 13, we're also in the follicular phase, the buildup. So after the period, the bleed has stopped. Then we move into the follicular phase. So your follicular phase is going to be after your bleed up to the 13th day. Here, your brain is signaling your follicle stimulating hormone. Okay, so it's saying, hey, we need to grow a follicle, right? So it tells the ovaries, hey, hello, we need to grow this follicle. And throughout this time, one dominant mature follicle will be prepared for release. In this time, your estrogen will rise. And it's rising to help rebuild that uterine lining that we just shed. When estrogen is at its highest, we're feeling pretty good, right? Body, your body focus is growth, it's regeneration, and boosting estrogen makes us feel good. Our energy, our mood, our mental clarity start to improve, right? So again, when we're talking about paying attention to symptoms, look at when you have estrogen in your system versus when you don't, okay? Because again, when I go into my follicular phase and I'm feeling sharp and energized and clear, that's a sign, okay? I'm going to come back to that. You're also more insulin sensitive. You have better carb tolerance than in the other phases. You're more motivated and your strength increases during the follicular phase. What why does this happen? Well, estrogen is an anabolic hormone. It helps to build, okay? Think anabolic, building, catabolic, shedding or losing, right? So this is why during that phase, a lot of my clients feel very sharp and strong. They feel very on during that phase. Okay? Any questions? Good. Around day 14, and for 3 days only, you go through ovulation. During ovulation is the release. What happens is there's a surge in luteinizing hormone, which triggers the release of that mature egg. During this time, your estrogen peaks, but also your luteinizing hormone peaks. The other important thing that happens here is you get a boost in testosterone to boost your libido and strength. So now you're horny and you're strong AF. So why does that happen? Well, think of the body's focus as this is my fertility window, and it's the final prep for potential pregnancy. Also, during this time, your uterine lining thickens and prepares for possible implantation of that mature egg. During this time, again, you might feel you're energized, you feel very attractive, you're getting a little loosey, like, hey, very social, right? There's that, you've got a lot of good feeling hormones happening. However, because we do have this kind of surge in these hormones, for some of my clients, during ovulation, they might see their weight increase. I've seen this a lot where we'll actually see weight increase both in the ovulation phase and also a couple days before the bleeding phase. And it's not abnormal. It's not abnormal for clients. And ovulation can be very painful because your ovum is pushing out of that ovary and there's no exit. It just pops out. So you might feel some twinging on that side. Some people, it can put them out, and then your fallopian tubes and these little fingers grab on to that ovum. So in this phase, you might also feel some bloating, like I said, some breast tenderness, headaches, especially as estrogen drops after it surges. Okay. So think that this is your most hormonally like turned on phase. Whoop, whoop. Your ideal peak performance, you're socializing, you're very strength based, feeling good. So let's just think about it. Other than the bleed phase, first half of the cycle, we're doing good. But what goes up must come down. So day 15 to 28 is your luteal phase. This is the hold phase and the wind down phase. After ovulation, the follicle turns into the corpus luteum, which produces progesterone. Progesterone thickens the uterine lining further. Okay? The goal is for that little ovum to be fertilized with a little sperm and then be implanted into this thickened lining. It's supposed to like attach to it. However, if pregnancy does not occur, hormone levels drop, okay? Triggering the next period. So think of the body's focus as stabilization, right? And either becoming pregnant or preparing for the next cycle. In this phase, we're creating a calm anti-inflammatory environment if progesterone is high enough. But how it feels is your body temperature actually goes up a bit. You may feel warmer or sweat more during this phase. You may feel tired, hungry, emotional, sensitive, because estrogen is down, progesterone is up, digestion slows, sleep can be disrupted, especially as both come down. Okay. Progesterone is very calming. Okay. It's calming if stress is low, but under high stress, your body steals from progesterone to make more cortisol, which can lead to PMS symptoms. So let me explain that. Now, this is not supported by the endocrinology world, but I think it's important to know. And I've talked to you guys about this before, which is what we call the cortisol steal. So your cholesterol creates pregnenolone. Pregnenolone is the mother hormone. The mother hormone of all hormones. Pregnenolone has a couple pathways that it goes. One pathway is down into your anabolic hormones like estrogen, testosterone, DHEA. However, if you are in an incredibly stressed body, what will happen is pregnenolone will create progesterone. But in an effort to create more cortisol, the body will steal from making progesterone and create that cortisol. Are you tired of wasting your money on diet and exercise program that leave you feeling pretty much the same? You're spinning your wheels, but the food noise is still there, the body dysmorphia, the overtraining and not seeing results, the emotional eating, it's all still there. But you don't think you have an option because they're pretty much all the same. What if the next program you invest in combines therapeutic practice with exercise and nutrition science and behavioral change? What if this program focuses on what you say in your mind so that you can have a better relationship on what you see in the mirror? Hi, I'm Christina Hathaway, licensed therapist with specialized training in food and body obsession, certified personal trainer and nutrition coach, and I'm the founder of the Mindset and Matter coaching program. Here, we see your mind, your body, and your identity as one integrated system and treat it as such. We focus on your self-defeating beliefs and understand how they impact your behaviors and thus the outcomes that you feel stuck in. We do this through the Mindset Method, my psychological curriculum that I've curated with over 15 years experience and adapted it to you, the average woman, and this coaching program. This is one method, one program, one coach, and let's face it, the one area you've probably never done the work on. So if you're tired of spinning your wheels and wasting your money, check out the link below for more information. So what we'll see is actually low levels of progesterone, high levels of cortisol because we're in a stress state. So I wanted to put that in there because if you're already very chronically stressed, which a lot of people who listen to this are in that toxic resilience, relaxation, remorse state, this is where a lot of PMS symptoms happen, where we're a lot moodier, we're shorter, we're feeling maybe even like some depressive symptoms, heightened anxiety. So we'll talk about how to handle this, of course. Okay, so again, just to reiterate, menstrual phase, hormones are at their lowest. You may feel low energy, need for iron-rich foods, crave warmth and comfort. During this time, it's okay to take it easy. It's okay to take it easy on workouts, walking, mobility, a light stretch may work for you. Now, again, you may be able to train the same throughout all areas of your cycle. This is where it's important to listen to your body, okay? But don't push through if you're not feeling up to it, because again, that's just going to cause more stress. Follicular phase, estrogen is rising, so your energy picks up, your mood lifts, you're more insulin sensitive, so carbs are better tolerated, as I mentioned. It's a great time for intense workouts, goal setting, and planning. This is where we can really push those heavier lifts, maybe try a new routine, stuff like that. Ovulation again, estrogen peaks and bursts of LH, luteinizing hormone. Your libido may spike, strength will feel on point, and you may feel more social. Some women again feel great, others might not. Luteal phase, progesterone rises. You may feel hungrier, tired, less tolerant to stress overall. Your digestion may also slow during this time. Sleep might be lighter at this time. You may retain water. Your weight might go up. You may feel more emotional. You may not feel like going and crushing workouts. So again, you can decide I can continue in my plan, or I could maybe cut back on the amount of weight I'm lifting. I could still do my workout, but I'm going to cut back, right? The other thing in the luteal phase, is focusing on protein and carb intake. We're going to be craving carbs, but it's important to pair them with protein because protein is what helps us build. So your body will naturally crave the things that it needs. Now remember, we're building, right? And then shedding, and that takes a lot of energy. So during this time, it's important to understand like what your body is actually asking for, and it wants carbs that are not fast burning carbs, even though the brain says sugar, sugar, sugar. Giving it those slow burning high fiber carbs paired with a nice protein, that's actually what is going to be beneficial to your body during that time. Plus you're going to feel fuller longer. Okay, but what about postpartum in weaning off breastfeeding? How does that affect your cycle? So when you're breastfeeding, prolactin suppresses ovulation, which is why a lot of women don't get their period for months, even years, right? So once you start weaning, your hormones kind of begin to recalibrate, as I mentioned. Now, again, it's kind of a restart, right? We're starting from scratch where estrogen and progesterone start to fluctuate unpredictably. Your cycle may be irregular, it may be heavier, it may be MIA altogether, right? We want to pay attention to that. You may notice that your PMS is worse, your cravings are worse, your mood swings are worse. This is the body relearning how to have its cycle because it hasn't had its cycle. This is simply a transition. There is nothing wrong with you. It just means your body is trying to restore the rhythm of its cycle. Now, common things that we do, we think we're going to bounce back. We think our body's going to bounce back. Our hormones are going to bounce back. We don't realize that we've just kind of shut off our hormones for 10 months. Longer, really, if you're breastfeeding. You're not going to just jump into a regular cycle. Now, maybe some people do, but this phase is important. My client that I told you guys about at the beginning, she is doing one workout per week right now. Not only is her hormones are coming back from breastfeeding and now she's having a period, but also no one told her she was fucking anemic after birth. And I am not a doctor, but I'm also not an idiot. I could look at her labs and be like, I think adding an iron supplement would be helpful for you. And just the other day, last Thursday, she said, I'm actually feeling a lot better, which is wonderful. So all of that is happening. Because again, no one fucking talks about this stuff. They look at the baby, make sure the baby's okay. But like, why aren't we looking at the mom? So anyways, expecting to bounce back, expecting to go into your training plan, right? Now, some of you can do that, but the mothers that I work with who really have, I don't want to say the best results, but the best progression, they're the ones who take their time. They take their time to come back. They've recognized that it's not just the 6-week postpartum period that they need to get clearance for. There is the breastfeeding, there's the sleep. There's so many foundational things that we need to focus on before we're trying to jump back into our old plan. Plus pelvic floor health, any pressure, any diastasis recti, any tearing of or pulling apart of the abdominals. I think I said that right. Those are a lot of things we got to think about. So the best approach postpartum is to take it slow and almost don't assume that your symptoms and your cycle is going to be the same. Let's relearn it. Now, it might be the same. Great. But we need to relearn it. We need to focus on our symptoms. I'm going to talk to you guys about this, right? Tracking your symptoms, tracking your days, understanding how you're feeling. And don't freak out if things are off for the first couple of months or so. Okay. Then in perimenopause again is the period before you completely stop your period. So it's about 7 to 10 years prior to that. I know. Yay. We women, poor things. We're very strong. Sorry. So it's 7 to 10 years, 7 to 10 year phase before you lose your period completely. The thing about it is your estrogen is fluctuating wildly, into your mid to late 30s. Don't fuck these people who are telling you, now you're too young. No, you're not. And I want to say something. If you have not had children like me, if you started your period early, okay, if you have trauma, and I don't remember the reason well, I do actually. This is not based in research, but I'm going to put 2 and 2 together, is that when we're in a chronically stressed state because of PTSD, our bodies do not ovulate correctly because it does not feel like it's in a safe space to reproduce. So there's other factors that go into why we also might go into perimenopause earlier, but I do know, and abdominal surgery. So my hysterectomy, push me. Anytime you have abdominal surgery, there's a chance for you to have issues with ovulation and things like that. So again, don't quote me on that. This is just from the things that I've read and learned. But you can go into perimenopause earlier. And again, for those of you who are new, I had a hysterectomy at age 35. I kept my ovaries, but around age 38, 39, I started recognizing that there were things happening in my body, and I don't have a period to know where I'm at. My, blood work shows that I am in perimenopause, but of course, as we've talked with Dr. Trapp, like blood work is not always going to be your number one thing, but in your blood work, your luteinizing hormone and your follicle stimulating hormone give you a good idea. But again, there's no one blood test to tell you're in perimenopause. Anywho, estrogen is fluctuating. It's going crazy. Some cycles are high, some cycles are low. And remember, when you think about your period, remember in the beginning, estrogen is high. We're feeling good. Whoop, whoop. And then in the second half, estrogen is low and we feel like shit. So guess what happens when we have these fluctuations throughout our 5 to 10 years? You're like, what is happening? Then also progesterone declines steadily. And remember, age 35 on, we have stress in our life. Like, we're not a spring chicken. We have families and careers. And I mean, I lost my dad at 42. We have parents who are sick or just aging, right? And relationships. So we're already stressed out. Plus, then our body starts going through these changes. Ovulation becomes inconsistent. And again, your response to stress becomes more sensitive, which only makes things worse. Okay? So we may see that our cycles are shorter or longer, right? We may have heavier periods. And I want to say something. Let me come back to that first one. With a lot of my clients, like, they'll have 6 weeks between a cycle, and then the next round they'll have 3 weeks between their cycle, and then it will be another 3 weeks, and then 6 weeks. So it's not just my cycle is now shorter or my cycle is now longer. It's one or the other. Heavier periods or very light periods, worse PMS. This actually was something that I experienced because I do track my symptoms even though I don't have a period because I still have hormones, right? And I would get into these really, really just shitty moods. And I hate it. I hate feeling that way. I'm thankful that I have the awareness to notice that my body is in this different state. But that was one of the things that really stood out to me. Hot flashes and night sweats, definitely something that I've struggled with. And then, like I said before, heightened anxiety or mood shifts, right? And all of this matters, you guys. A lot of doctors are going to tell you just focus on the period. Right? Now, yes, as I'm saying, there are changes to your cycle that are happening, but also we have to remember your hormones also affect your neurotransmitters and your nervous system. So they all work together, and it's really important for you to recognize it. So the biggest takeaway is you're kind of going through this hormonal rewiring. You know what? I get annoyed where people say like the ovaries quit, right? Or like shut down. It's like, they're not a factory. Like, they're in retirement. Throw them a retirement party. They work real hard. They didn't like shut down and go out of business. Like, they are retired. Okay? So we need to stop saying that. Anyhow, I digress. If your stress is high during this time, your symptoms are going to be worse. And if your symptoms during your premenopausal years were X, Y, or Z, those at X, Y, or Z. So say your symptoms, for example, were heightened anxiety, acne, and tiredness. We're going to see that in perimenopause. Yes, we will get acne and wrinkles and gray hairs at the same time. Yay! But we don't need to suffer in this. What we need to do is shift the strategy. So let's get into that. How to work with our bodies, not against it. Whether you're postpartum or perimenopause, we don't need to micromanage every fucking hormone. We can support your system. Okay. So the first thing I want y'all to do is track your symptoms. You don't have to be obsessive over it, but like get enough info to see the pattern clearly, right? Clarity for you is going to be your power. Write it down. Keep track of it. I have a symptom tracker. I think I could share that with you guys. If I can, I'll put it in the show notes below. It is something that I do with my Mindset of Menopause clients. This is going to be helpful for the doctor, right? Now, if you come in with with symptoms and you've tracked them and you're seeing a pattern, then the doctor still says no, it's time to find a new doctor. Again, like I said, there's not one test for perimenopause, but there are symptoms that clustered together say kind of like all signs point to yes, right? So track your symptoms. Then pay attention to those symptoms and the patterns within your cycle. So if you notice that in the later phase of your cycle that you're kind of pushing through workouts, you're like, God, this fucking workout sucks. Like, I don't want to be here. I'm just so tired. Then let's train with your cycle. Now, I'm not about cycle syncing because like I said, for some women, doesn't matter what phase of their cycle they're in, they train the same. I'm not sure why. It could be, there's probably a multitude of factors for that. And like I said, I'll get an expert in to try to answer that question for you. But you can train with your cycle. So you may use your later phase of the cycle as your deload week. So you may go heavy, 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 cut the load in half for a week. Heavy, 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 cut the load half for a week, right? So heavy lifting in the follicular phase, deload in the luteal phase, and maybe menstrual phase. Some women actually get a little surge in their menstrual cycle. But again, you listen to your body. The other thing we want to do is support your blood sugar, okay? Like I already mentioned, protein and fiber at every meal. This will help stabilize your cravings, as I had mentioned. It will also help with your mood and your energy levels. When we turn to those fast-burning carbs and sugar, because sugar was designed for our little rat brains to get addicted to, we're going to crash. We're going to crash. And it also, if we don't have a good system around our stress and capacity, which I'll talk about next, we are going to feel worse because we're going to have a little surge of like dopamine and then drop. And that drop in dopamine is ultimately what we're trying to avoid, right? But because of the choice of food we're eating, we're literally making that happen. So having those high fiber foods, finding the fibrous foods that you like I love strawberries, especially during season. Give me all those strawberries. Give me the apples, right? Give me an apple with some string cheese and maybe some peanut butter. Yes, those are higher fats, but also protein. Yummy, yummy. I love it. Yummy, yummy in my tummy. So find those foods that help, even dark chocolate. Like dark chocolate is a great thing to have on hand, but pairing those two together will help support your blood sugar. Supporting your blood sugar levels are going to help you reduce cravings and mood, because remember that whole thing, hangry is a thing. We want to also honor your capacity for stress. So I think I talked about load versus capacity. And did I? I think so. You've got to think about during your cycle, when you're in that energized state, you probably take on more. And your nervous system capacity can handle more. So your load is like your stressors, your responsibilities, I shouldn't say stressors, just your responsibilities, the things you take on, your work, your home life, your social life, all of that. And then your capacity is your nervous system's ability to manage those things. And at a certain point, there's a point in the load or a heaviness of the load that exceeds your nervous system's capacity to handle it, right? So you may notice that during your luteal phase, you don't have as high of a capacity. So during that time, we need to lighten the load, right? And that's also another reason why we may not want to push through a workout, right? Maybe that workout is the thing that pushes us over, and now we're we're emotionally triggered, right? So you can't out-train a fried nervous system. We need to protect yourself during that time. So we work in instead of work out when or if your nervous system capacity is lower in those later phases of the cycle. I hope that makes sense. So what does that look like? During that time, like I said, cutting the load, deloading the workout, but also maybe we're doing more mobility. Maybe we're doing more stretching. Maybe we're not moving and we're just lying there and focusing on breath work, focusing on inner connection to self, helping to calm down our bodies. Okay. Some other things I added in here is during certain times we can use supplements strategically. So using magnesium to help us sleep. B6 adaptogens are great. I use ashwagandha. I actually use a few that Dr. Chap has suggested to me, and really figuring out like what your symptoms mean in regards to maybe what our body's not receiving. And like if you're constantly craving like iron, like foods that are high in iron, even adding an iron supplement, which most women are low in iron. So like for me, I have an iron supplement that I take every day, but using those supplements strategically. And really, really, like I said, learning your body is going to be incredibly important. And I feel like recognizing that you are going through these different phases of life and that each phase is going to have a different response in your body. While yes, our bodies are brilliant, they're not, when you go through childbirth, when you go through perimenopause, like you're going to have discrepancies, if you will. You're going to have changes that you just need to be okay with. You need to, not that kind of sounds shitty, but like accept. Like, all right, well, I had a 5-day cycle and now it's 3. I mean, it's not a bad thing, right? And just accepting that that's where you're at. So your cycle is not a problem to fix. It is a biofeedback loop. It's a brilliant loop. And understanding your symptoms is a way that your body is communicating to you. And during postpartum, during perimenopause, your body doesn't need more punishment. It needs you to be a partner with it. So partner with your body, understand it. And I hope that this was helpful for you guys. If you like this information and you're a part of a book club or a cooking group or a pickup, share this with your homegirls. They need to know about their periods too. If you are interested in working with me, I have a handful of openings. We have 3 different programs, you guys. I think this is a good time to talk about it. If you're still listening, we have our one-to-one concierge path, which is a one-to-one, very hands-on coaching program with yours truly. We have our collective path. Our guided path, which is bi-weekly coaching. Calls with me every other week with a little bit of distance between calls. And then we have our collective path, which is the group coaching. There are no calls one-to-one, but we have a group coaching call plus individualized check-ins. So if you're interested in that, check out the show notes below. Set up a clarity call with me. At the end of this call, at least you will know the next best steps for you to take in regards to your goals. Lastly, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that follow button wherever you're listening to this podcast. If you are watching me on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. And if you love me, and I know we've got new followers. Y'all text me or text. I'm such a grandma. You DM me that you're listening. I want to see you. I want to see your 5-star rating and review. That helps me so much. You know what? No, I'm not going to talk about that. Also, don't forget, on this exact channel on YouTube, we are doing our live streams. So live streams are a way for you to be involved. I'd love to have you guys there in the chat asking questions. Live stream is where I'm talking about current day shit. What's going on in the world? And I'm so excited for it. So check out our Instagram for the next live stream. So love you guys. Thank you so much. And I'm going to leave you and remind you that what do I say here? What you say in your mind, you see in the mirror. Bye.